Alright guys, Arlen Ness Method air sucker there and a Dyno Jet Power Vision tune to round out my stage 1 on the 2022 Harley Davidson Street Bob. Does it make any difference? I'm going to hop on, take it for a ride and find out. Alright everybody, what is up? What is up? As always, thanks for stopping by to another video today. Pretty excited for this one. If you guys tuned into my previous video, you guys saw I was down in South Philadelphia at Revzilla doing a little bit of work with them. They were doing some work on my bike here for a stage 1 to throw this Arlen Ness clear method air intake on there, along with the Dynojet Power Vision 3 tuner here. So I was able to finally go ahead and get the bike picked up. Been doing a little bit of riding with it so far with the new intake and the tune from the Dynojet Power Vision tuner on there, but now I really wanted to kind of give you guys a first kind of preview of what we have going on here. Of course, again, this is the Arlen Ness clear method air intake with the kind of red fitting around the edge here. And so for today's video, I wanted to hop on the bike. I have been riding on it a little bit since I picked it up with some of the new parts and the tune installed here, but really wanted to hop on the bike today, give you guys kind of my first impressions, what I'm noticing, any differences, any changes with the new intake and the Dyno Jet Tune here that we have. I really want to go ahead and give you guys some insight into some of my initial impressions of any of the changes, any differences in performance, feel, power, sound, anything like that, now that we have this stage 1 installed on the bike. So again, most times your stage 1 is considered of your upgraded air intake and then flashing a tune to get your air and fuel mixtures matched up with the ECM. That the stock setup on the Milwaukee 8114 was considered to be high flow with the air intake, but I think we've got a little bit even more free-flowing air here with this Arlen Ness one as well. So like I said, wanted to hop on the bike, get you guys all that data, all that detail of everything we have going on here now that we do have the full stage 1 on. Really just see if there's any noticeable differences in what we have going on with the bike, just how it's performing, riding, functioning, sounding, handling, all that good stuff. And so to start it out, one of the big things, obviously, when you upgrade your intake, one of the things to consider is going to be looks, of course. So again, this is the clear Arlen Ness method air intake. So we've got this red kind of housing, the red fixture around the outside. I'll be honest with you guys, not entirely sure how I feel about it so far. I'll pull it out into the light here in just a moment so we get a little bit better look at it. It does actually match the red line red pretty well, but I'm just not entirely sure, how I feel about the red against the black engine there. I think I would kind of probably prefer a black housing. I think I might get the black one in the future, but we're just going to go ahead and run it with the red one for now, because if you guys saw my last video, this stuff was free, provided by one of my friends that works at Revzilla. And Revzilla, they were kind enough to use my bike as a photo shoot bike, so they installed these parts here. They did the tune and everything, they did the intake, they did all that stuff because they wanted it for some content for some of their product pages, magazines, and shoots and stuff like that. And lucky enough for me, I was able to go ahead and keep this stuff for free after they did all their work to it. They did the work, they installed it, they took all the pictures and photos and everything, and then lucky enough for me, I'm allowed to go ahead and keep this stuff on the bike. So one bummer about this, when they were doing all that stuff, I had to work. I wasn't able to be there for like the install and all of the pictures and stuff like that. So unfortunately, no install content with this one. Pretty much all this video is going to be is post-install stuff, my impressions, how it's feeling, how it's running, and everything like that. Also, if you take a look here at the tune, this is the Dynojet Power Vision 3B tuner. Of course, we all know hooks up to the ECM. You can go ahead and pick out your tune. They went ahead and did the high flow map with 2-to-1 exhaust. Of course, I've got the SP Concepts 2-to-1 lane splitter here, so They mapped it with high flow, 2-to-1 exhaust, flashed it to the ECU, and it's all good to go so far. I've got a few miles on it, but we're really going to get a little bit more of those first impressions on that today, really let you guys know how it's feeling, how it's running. Another thing with the tuner here, if I do end up doing any changes in the future, flashing it differently or anything like that, I do have the tuner. Of course, it's married to the bike now. We can make any of those changes. If I do any of those, of course, I'll probably film some of that, give you guys some insight to that as well. But I do want to wheel this thing out into the light here for us before we take off real quick. Like I said, I want to give you guys another look at the red housing on the intake. Alright guys, so there you can see it a little bit more in the light, the red housing of the intake there. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Should I keep it with red? I kind of think I want to change it out to black, but let me know how you think that red is kind of accenting the bike as a whole. I'm not entirely sold on it just yet. I'm just not entirely sure how I feel about that red right now, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Also, before we get started, drop it down in the comments any changes or differences you think we're going to feel with this stage 1 intake and tune now, or anything that you guys out there have noticed with some of your stage 1 changes. And then pretty soon here as we hop on, I'll see if any of that aligns kind of with what you guys are thinking, anything that we will notice as far as changes with how the bike is running. Alright, first things first, let's fire it up, see how she sounds. So we're off now, gave it a good start, a couple good revs there. I would say maybe a little bit deeper, not a whole lot to notice there with the sound or the startup, but maybe a tad little deeper there. Now for anybody that doesn't know, I had been running my Street Bob with the 2-to-1 exhaust and the stock air filter, which like I said previously is considered to be a high flow intake, and I would say it was running pretty much fine. You know, I ran it for probably 5 months that way with no tune, so I'm really hoping to see like what we might be able to notice here with any changes. All right, so we've just been putting around town, just like first and second gear, not really noticing too much differences just yet. Nothing really in first gear. I will say around second to third gear, I am starting to notice a little bit more pickup, just a little bit more kick when I really get on it between those two gears. Nothing really noticeable in first, but that's why I wanted to hit Kelly Drive, see if we can get a little bit of an opportunity to maybe open it up a little bit more here instead of just putting around town. Now one thing I will say is a little bit of the deceleration right here actually sounds a little bit cleaner and smoother than before. Let me lift my visor up, see if we get a little better sound of that. A little bit of that deceleration, not that it was anything bad before without the tune, but it just feels a little bit smoother and a little bit more clean on that deceleration. And I would say at this point, I am noticing, I do think it's running just a little bit smoother and cleaner. Like, I know that's just kind of like an anecdotal type statement, but it feels to not be like shaking as much. The shifts feel really good and smooth between all the gears. That's one thing that I'm noticing right off the bat, is it does seem to just be running a little bit cleaner, maybe a little bit more efficiently, most likely again a product of the tune there, getting a good map between the 2-to-1 pipe and the high flow air filter. So that does seem to be one thing that I've noticed. And again, I think it's the throttle responsivity through like second to third and fourth that I've noticed so far. So as far as power goes, I think one of the things that we kind of like general consensus with the stage 1 is you're going to get maybe a little bit of an increase in horsepower and torque. Like I referenced in the last video, Blockhead did some of these tests on some stage 1s on a Milwaukee 8 107 on Iron J Moto's bike, and I mean really it sounded like all the different combinations they did, they were getting like a 1 to 2 increase in horsepower, maybe a 1 to 2 increase in torque as well. maybe not something that you're gonna so much necessarily notice like right away hopping on the bike, but I am noticing that I'm getting a little more kind of like oomph and power and kick between second and third. Like I said, not a lot of noticeable difference in first, but definitely a little bit more throttle response into some of those gears as you're cranking through like second and third. We'll downshift into second right here, see if we can give ourselves some space to show you what I mean here. So I'm in second gear, about 3,200. And that felt pretty good. I mean, that was a really good response, really good kick right there in between those two gears. I will say that, I don't know if this is in my head as well, but it does seem like maybe it's just kind of like shifting a little better, shifting a little smoother with that tune on there. So coming off a light here, let's see how we feel in first. 3,000. That was fun. So yeah, I mean, pretty good little kick there. I would say a little bit more of a punch, just a little bit more of a response there as you're clanging through those gears, getting up and going, getting the air and fuel ratios mixtured properly with the tune. Yeah, those couple of pulls right there feel really good down in some of these lower gears. I've got to assume there's definitely a noticeable increase in torque right there. It's just lifting you up and taking you, pushing you right through the gears. So I mean, that's pretty cool. I would say that's definitely a result of the upgraded intake and the tune there getting mapped out properly. So just another one of those little results that I would say that I'm noticing after getting this thing flashed and the new intake on there. Just some of the other little things that I've kind of noticed along the way as we've been out cruising now for a little bit is, like I said, I might have mentioned this previously, but the decel pop and like the deceleration sounds to be cleaned up a good amount. Like, there's not really much backfiring between gears or while decelerating or anything like that anymore. It wasn't terrible before without the tune, but it just feels very cleaned up now. So now some things that I'll be curious for the future on with this is, I'll be curious to see how it affects gas mileage. I think probably general consensus would be that gas mileage is going to go down a little bit. My assumption would have to be that it was running lean before the tune, and now that we've got that map getting the mixtures properly situated, I'm assuming gas mileage is going to go down just a little bit, which is something I will keep an eye on. If nothing else, the gas mileage will probably just go down because I'm having more fun just cranking on it. Opening it up through every gear, seeing where I can go with it. Another thing that I'll be interested in keeping an eye on in the future is kind of the temperature or how hot it's running. I don't know if that tune will kind of help that out at all or anything like that. I always thought that the Milwaukee 8 kind of ran pretty hot. Even once I put the 2-to-1 on there, seemed like it was running pretty hot as well. Maybe now that we're getting more air out of this Arlen Ness intake, maybe that'll cool it down possibly. I don't know, not too tech savvy on how that might impact, but I'll be interested to see how the temperature or the heat plays out now that we've got it tuned as well. So I guess one of the big questions as we start to wrap this one up is, you know, is the stage 1 kind of worth it at all? I got some mixed feedback on some of the last video posing some of the same questions, saying, you know, if you're going to jump up to stage 2, just wait till then to do some of that work. If stage 1's all you're really planning on doing in the first place, then yeah, just go ahead and do it. I would kind of fall into that former category to say, I don't know if the money is worth the result for a stage 1 if you've got more work coming up in the future. For example, if you take an intake and a tune, that whole setup is going to run you probably anywhere from like, you know, $700 to $1,000 possibly, depending on what products you go with. And to me, I think just where you're at with just a stage 1, I don't necessarily think it's worth it to spend the money. I would just spend the extra money, go right up to a stage 2, but you know, whatever floats your boat, however you want to go with your bike, obviously your decisions on that route. I just don't know that the results of a stage 1 is enough to really kind of justify that money. And again, the only reason that I did it is because it was free. Actually, like I said, Revzilla installed these parts on here, the intake, the tuner, to do some of their content for some of their pages and some magazines and stuff, so I got to keep it. If it was not for that, I don't think I would have spent the money to do it. I would have just held off until I was going to go up into a stage 2 to have a lot of this done. So I do think that will get this one wrapped up for now. As always, make sure you go ahead and drop your comments down there. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the stage 1 and any of the results or noticeable differences that anybody out there has noticed after doing your stage 1s. Let me know how you think it went. Drop it down there in the comments and let us know. But that'll finish up this one for today. We're going to take a ride back into the city of Philadelphia. As always, if you like anything we got going on here, make sure you go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys ride safe out there. It's the Moto Jawn. We'll see you all on down the road. Peace.